This week's parasha, Parashat Bamidbar, Sefer Bamidbar, the fourth book of the Torah. Bamidbar, we're starting a new Sefer, a Sefer that's normally translated into English as the Book of Numbers, because it starts off with Hashem commanding Moshe Rabbeinu, go to the people and go and count the people. We have the Book of Numbers, because you have to go count them. So Hashem speaks to them, Moshe in Bar Sinai, Hashem speaks to them from the Oel Ma'ed, gives the date, and then it says, Se'u et Rosh Koradat Bnei Yisrael Mishpechotam. Go and count the whole community based on their families, lebeit abotam, mishpechotam, lebeit abotam, b'mispar shemot, kol zachar legulgulatam. We're going to go every single male, miben esrim shana b'mala, from 20 and up, kol yotzet tzava b'Yisrael, anybody who's of army age, tifkedu otam tzvotam ata v'Aaron, you and Aaron go person to person and count all the men that are going to be joining the army, the tzava Hashem. They're going to be joining the tzava b'Yisrael. Let's go do a count. V'itechem yiyu ish lemateh. And associated with them, there'll be a person for each tribe. Ish rosh leveit avotavhu, each one the head of his ancestral house. So Rashi explains, what does it mean v'itechem yiyu? What does that mean that someone's going to go with you? Who's this guy going with you? V'itechem yiyu k'shtivkedu otam, when you're going to go count the people, yu imachem nesi kol shevet v'shevet. Let the prince of every tribe, let him walk with you as you go house to house, and you count the people and have the one-on-one time where you're meeting all the men who are going to be joining the army of the Jewish people. Okay, so back to this pasuk. V'itechem yiyu ish lemateh. And with you, there'll be each person ish. Okay, I want to go and I'll look at this from a more mystical perspective. So Rashi says, according to the Pshat, it means that, that each person is going to come, that the heads of the tribes are going to come with them, point out the different families, the different tribes, and they're going to escort Moshe and Aharon as they get to every single tribe. But comes along the Megaleh Mukot on our parasha, and he sees this pasuk as a remez, as a hint to a much deeper theme that we see throughout the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar. We spoke many times in the past that our parsha starts by counting the individuals based on their families, based on their tribes. Pretty soon we're going to discuss the formations, how we have ourselves 3 tribes on each of the 4 sides of the Mishkan. We have in the middle of the Jewish people, we have the Mishkan with the Aaron, the Torah in the middle. Then the Levi'im and the Kohanim are surrounding it, and then we have 3 tribes on each side on all 4 tribes. We actually mentioned once in the past from Rav Kamenetsky. So he writes, in the previous counts that we found in the Torah, Hashem counts the whole nation as a whole. How come right now we're getting more individualistic? We're going down from the tribe to the family, to the actual person. What changed? So he says, you know what changed? This count is taking place after Matan Torah. Now that we have a Torah to guide us, we have a Torah that's the center of all of our lives. It's in the center physically of the machaneh, of the camp, but it's also our direction. It gives us meaning. We now have the ability, and he says, now that we have meaning, now that we know what's important, so now we have the ability to have individual strengths come out. So we can each do Ratzon Hashem based on who we are. But this is only true now when we have the Torah, because before the Torah, it gets very dangerous to have such individual strengths and kochot, and then what takes place is everybody starts fighting, okay, I have my strength, you have your strength, but the question is, mi barosh, who's going to be in charge, or what's going to be the mission, who's going to be, and that people would fight and debate, because once we have a Torah in the middle, in the center of the camp, we all know, who's in charge? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge. Once we understand that, so now already we can now begin to develop our tribal affiliation, our tribal midot. We spoken many times over the years in the past about how each tribe has special character traits to them as a tribe. And then from the tribe to the family, then from the family to the individual, and we can really bring out our individual strengths so we can all be able to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu together as this beautiful harmony of a Jewish people. Okay, that was Rav Kamenetsky. We also spoke in the past of different midrashic and mystical teachings that speak about the parallels between us down below and the way our formations are surrounding the Mishkan, and the way that works in all the upper worlds and the spiritual worlds above us. Specifically, the most famous being the angels and the Shamayim are split up on all 4 sides as they escort the Merkava, Hashem's holy chariot in the heavens. So we have this concept that we correspond to different levels, and really the corresponding is not just the angel level, but every level going all the way up. We seem to have this division of 4, a division of 3 within the 4, and it all goes up level by level. And we want it to be that the honor guards, the angels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down below in the physical world down below, because we have this parallel. So based on that last idea, I want to look back at this Megaleh Mukot on our pasuk, because he goes to this pasuk, "Ve'itechem yiyu ish," and with you will be person, which we said Rashi explained. That means that with Moshe and Aaron, the Nesiim are going to come. But he's going to take this now as a remez, as a hint, being much more literal with the words. Ve'itechem, and with you. Yihiyu ish ish. There will be an ish ish. There will be a person. What does that mean? So says the Megillah Mukot. Bekan remez mash'ita bazohar. This is a hint to what's written in the Zohar. Shemana kan chelotea shel shchina v'chayolot oraita, where the Zohar says that Hashem counted the soldiers or the legions that are the chayalim of the Shechina and the chayalim of the Torah. So we happen to have, so if our parsha is speaking about the soldiers, we're the soldiers of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these men, age 20 and up. So now it says the Zohar, it's actually the Zohar on our parasha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu also was counting the soldiers of the Shechina and the soldiers of the Oraita, the soldiers of the Torah. Says the Megillah Mukot, he says, we looked at the whole Torah. I don't find anywhere where we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is counting, or anywhere that we're counting. There's no count in the Torah for the soldiers, for these legions of the Torah, and these soldiers, these angels, whatever we're going to call these chayalot of the Shechina. I only see Rak Chayalot Yisrael. I only see the Jewish soldiers. I only see the soldiers in our parasha, the count that we have by us. If we actually open up that Zohar, so the Zohar on our parasha, it's Chelek Gimel, Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Bet. Let's read it in the Hebrew translation. Kevan she'Torah v'Mishkan hukumu. Once the Torah and the Mishkan. Now, interesting. The Megillah Mukot keeps saying the soldiers of the Shechina, but in the actual Zohar it says v'chayalin de Mashkena. It says the Mishkan. These are the Mishkan soldiers, the Mishkan legions, the Mishkan angels, which I think the Megillah Mukot is not arguing. I mean, he had a different girsa of it, but the Shechina here as it corresponds to the Mishkan. Because it seems to be we have a Torah and we have a Mishkan, and you can ayin the different commentaries on the Zohar over here that are going to explain there's the masculine and the feminine and they're coming together. But it says as follows: Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu livkod ha'chayilot shel Torah. Hashem wanted to count how many soldiers there were for the Torah. Kamat tzeva'otem shel Torah, kamat tzeva'otem shel Mishkan, and how many are there for the Torah, and how many are there for the Mishkan? Bo re'eh, come and see. Anything that has to be properly settle and really come together properly, meaning now in our parasha, finally in Sefer Bamidbar, we're finally, in Vayikra, we began to inaugurate the temple at the end of Shemot. We're going to come back to that same day, the Yom HaShmini, that we had in Vayikra, that we ended off Shemot with. It's going to come back in our parasha, because now we're really, really inaugurating the Mishkan. So we got the Torah, we got the Mishkan. How do we really have it really be? Lo mityashev ad shenizkar bapeh. He says it's not real. It doesn't really establish itself until you mention it with. It's not really settled until you actually speak it out, until you say it, until you actually count it. And Afkan, so too. He wanted to count the soldiers of the Torah, the soldiers of the Mishkan, so to make it real, to make it settled, to make it established. The kulam hayu ke'echad velo nifradim ze mizeh. And he said, you should know, there's an unbelievable achdut. There's such a level of unity between the Torah and the Mishkan. Okay, and then the commentators are going to speak about what that actually means, because we always know in Kabbalah, you always want to make yichudim, the Shem Yichud Kuchar B'Richun Shchiteh, the Yudke and the Vavke. You always want to bring things together, so they see in this concept the Hava and the Yirah, the physical and the more spiritual, the upper, the lower. There's some kind of unity taking place, and the Torah and the Mishkan are always connected. And it seems to me that even they're connected even when it comes to the number, because says the Megillah Mukot, by us. We don't see this in the Torah, though. Very nice Zohar on our parasha, but where do we see that Hashem is counting these holy emissaries above? Where do we see that He's counting the Chayalim of the Torah and of the Mishkan? So says the Megillah Mukot. Do you want to know what the hint is? The remez is our parasha. Ve'itechem, and with you, yihiyu ish ish. With each of us, there's an ish ish. What's the ish ish? Meaning one ish is the chayal of the Torah, and the other ish is the chayal of the Mishkan. So while this Zohar is talking about the achdut between the Mishkan and the Torah, says the Megillah Mukot, there's actually three people that are involved, and he explains these mystical ideas beyond the scope of me and this Torah. But he says that we have a deeper connection between us, the Torah, and he writes the Shekhinah, but we see from the Zohar that talking about the Mishkan, the resting place of the Shekhinah. Although maybe we can say he's learning that maybe he learns the Mishkan is really mashal, really for Hashem. That meaning we have another famous teaching that Oraita Yisrael Oraita Kuchabichu Chadu, that the Jewish people, God and the Torah are all one. So maybe he's learning Mishkan over here might be some kind of mashal for Hashem as well. But we have this deep unity, and that's Itechem ish ish. And with us, with our count, there's a corresponding count of the Chayalim of the Torah and a corresponding count of the Chayalim of the Mishkan. But now the question is, how? How does our count correspond to the Torah? How does it correspond to the Mishkan? Like, what's that all about? So he says that, we said this many times in the past, we brought this on from many, many sources. Chazal tell us that, what does Yisrael stand for? Yisrael is yesh shishim mibo otiot la Torah, that there are 600,000 letters to the Torah, meaning every single neshama of every single Jewish person corresponds to a different letter in the Torah, meaning we all correspond. So our number is a direct corresponding to the chayal of the Torah, that our number, our neshama, corresponds to a letter which now corresponds to a chayal of the Torah. And also he says that the 600,000 also is corresponding to the chayalim of the Mishkan. So I guess we have them here. It sounds like there are 600,000 chayalim for the Mishkan. So he says that's when it comes to the letters. But you should know we had a second count by us. We're not only counting the Jewish people, we're also counting the Levi'im. The Levi'im are a separate count. And the Levi'im themselves, their number comes out to 20,300, but they come out to around 22,000. So in the past, we gave over to our Torah from Rav Leff. Rav Leff says, what's 22,000? That also corresponds to the Torah, because in the Torah, there's what's called a sritut. There's these little faint indentations that are made into the parchment that are like lines, so it makes the Torah look like a lined paper with the indentation, so the sofer could easily write the letters. And he says, how many are there? So he says, if you estimate, it's around 22,000. So he says, it's beautiful, because what are the Levi'im? Levi'im is a language of melaveh, to escort. The Levi'im escort the Jewish people. They try to connect us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Levi'im correspond to the 22,000 indentation lines in the Torah that hold up the 600,000 letters. So they too correspond to the Torah in the count, and I guess that corresponds to these chayalim as well. He also sees the Megalah. Now back to our Megalah Mukot. He sees the number 22,000. The main number there is 22. 22 is also a hint to the Aleph Bet. It's a hint to the letters, because we know that there are 22 letters in the Aleph Bet. So if we're talking about the Jewish people being 600,000 letters to the Torah, but a letter itself is made up of 22. So the 22,000 Levim hints to the 22,000 letters, which he explains mystically are 22 tzinorot, or 22 spiritual pipes, spiritual pathways that are they going to break off when they go down below into the 600,000 letters of the Torah. He then goes much more mystical, way beyond me, for my understanding, but he says, but that's hinted to in our parasha. V'itechem yiyu ish ish. With us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu counts us, and each one of us corresponds to that heavenly soldier of the Torah, to that heavenly soldier of the Shekhinah, to that heavenly soldier of the Mishkan. And then beautifully, the numbers correspond exactly, just like the Zohar is saying that the Torah and the Mishkan are connected deeply. So too says the Megillah Makot. So are we. So our 600,000 letters corresponding to the Yisrael, our 22,000 Levim corresponding to the Otiyot themselves, the Aleph Bet itself. They all come together in a beautiful unity. Hashem counts us, and in counting us, He's counting our corresponding soldier in the Shamayim that's there to protect the Torah and the Mishkan. Shabbat Shalom.